I've been playing hockey since I was 6 years old. Not professionally or anything, just in a neighborhood league that's about as casual as it gets. We have referees and sometimes parents show up to watch, but that's about as organized as it gets. I love it though, especially since our team, let's just call us the Wild, was doing really well this season. We were first in the league. That's where the trouble started. The second place team had this player who was the worst kind of bully. He'd constantly pull cheap shots on the ice, but the second anyone retaliated, he'd act like the victim. And his mother would always be there screaming from the sidelines defending his awful behavior. One incident really stands out. He hip-checked one of our players so hard they flipped and landed on their head. When our whole team went after him, he just hid behind the referee. Classic coward move. But the real drama happened during our latest game against them. Before the game even started, this kid was already being a jerk to his own teammates. He taped someone's skate blade as a prank and then yelled at their goalie for missing a difficult shot. His mother was there too, which was just great. She'd actually been banned earlier in the season for screaming at the referee when her precious son got called for slashing. Should have been a warning sign of what was coming. The game started pretty rough. The bully managed 2 big hits. Legal ones, technically, but one of them was on my friend. I was already getting angry, but I kept my cool and even scored a goal. This kid smashed his stick on the ground like a toddler, and his coach had to bench him. When he came back on the ice, he started trash-talking my goal, saying even his dead grandmother could shoot better than me. I shot back that at least his grandmother wasn't getting her ankles broken like he was. He tried to claim he just lost his balance, but I sarcastically agreed with him, knowing it would get under his skin. He shoved me hard and got a 2-minute penalty for interference. That's when his mother started up yelling that he had barely touched me. The referee asked her to keep her complaints down, but she responded with a slur. The referee threatened to remove her from the premises again, and she finally backed down. But the worst was yet to come. As soon as the penalty was over, this kid went straight for my friend, who was skating near the boards. They were facing the boards, completely vulnerable, and this coward just charged full speed and smashed them right into the wall. My friend went down hard, holding their face. While the team nurse and my friend's parent checked on them, Karen started screaming that he hadn't even touched them, and they were just being soft. Then this kid had the nerve to taunt my friend about how hard the hit was. That was it. I dropped my gloves and punched him right in the face. He tried to fight back but ended up on the ice. I'll admit it. I lost control. By the time they pulled me off him, I'd broken his nose and jaw. We both got escorted off the ice. After the game, which we won 3-1, Karen stormed up to us in the parking lot while we were waiting for an ambulance to check my friend's fractured jaw. She started screaming about how I should be in prison for hurting her son. When I pointed out that her son had committed assault by hitting someone from behind, my friend tried to get her to leave us alone. She mockingly accused my friend of faking their injury. When I warned her to back off before she joined her son in the hospital, she threatened to call the police. Then this woman, I kid you not, actually charged at us like a raging bull. She must have been at least 400 pounds, and she knocked me aside trying to get to my friend. She took a swing but missed, and I managed to shoulder check her off balance. That's when my friend's parents showed up. Now here's something you should know. They used to be in an elite military unit in Denmark specializing in close quarters combat. When Karen tried to push past them, she learned that the hard way. Within seconds, Karen was flat on her back with her arms pinned, screaming about assault. The cops and ambulance showed up at the same time. Both Karen and my friend's parent got taken in for questioning, but it all went to court. Before the trial, Karen threatened to ruin our lives if she got convicted of anything, while her husband called us pathetic kids for hurting their boy. But karma finally caught up to them. Karen got sentenced to 2 months of house arrest, mandatory anger management classes, and community service. My friend's parent was cleared of all charges. The icing on the cake? Both the bully and Karen got permanently banned from the league. Oh, and my friend? Once their jaw healed, we started dating. After spending years saving up while living in a cramped rental, my wife and I finally managed to buy our first home. a beautiful apartment in an old tenement building. What really sold us on the place was the shared garden, a rare find in the city. The building had this great self-managed system where all residents pitched in to maintain the common areas, which gave it this wonderful community feel. I work in IT and my wife's a veterinary nurse. We've been dreaming of having our own place where we could finally have a dog, so the moment we moved in, we adopted a friendly German Shepherd from the shelter where my wife volunteers. Everything seemed perfect. My upstairs neighbor initially appeared to be the sweetest person you could imagine. She was probably in her mid-60s, retired, and seemed thrilled to have new neighbors. She'd bring us homemade cakes, share her grandmother's recipes, and spend hours chatting with us in the garden while playing with our dog. We even organized several barbecues to get to know all our neighbors better, and she was always the first to arrive and the last to leave. But exactly 1 year later, everything changed. It started with a knock on our door one morning. She immediately started yelling about how our dog had completely ruined her flower bed. She demanded to know if I understood how long she'd been tending to those plants. I apologized and tried to offer a solution. I explained that I would pay for raised flower beds, including timber and soil, and even hire a handyman to build them. I thought this would prevent future issues and make gardening easier for her. She scoffed at my suggestion, asking if I thought throwing money at the problem would fix everything. I tried to explain that I was just trying to help and mentioned it would probably cost around £600, but I was happy to pay. She cut me off, demanding to know who would dig out her existing plants and what would happen to all the soil she'd already put in. Then she threatened that the law was on her side. I walked away from that conversation completely baffled. The next day, I tried again, thinking maybe she just needed time to cool off. I attempted to bring up the raised flower beds again, but she immediately started ranting. She sarcastically asked if I wanted to talk now, after what my monster had done to her garden. When I tried to remind her that I was still offering to pay for everything, she angrily told me that she'd already contacted the Residents Association and I would be hearing from them soon. That was the last civil conversation we had. I decided to minimize our garden time to avoid further confrontation, even though we were paying for shared access. But what she did next crossed a line. A few days later, I went to take our dog out and found something disturbing. She had installed metal spikes and barbed wire around her flower beds. This wasn't just petty anymore, it was dangerous for our dog and potentially illegal. That's when I decided to fight pettiness with pettiness. I ordered 2 annoyatrons, tiny devices that emit random, irritating sounds at irregular intervals. These little beauties run on batteries that last for months. I carefully placed one in her window box outside her bedroom and another behind a loose tile near her front door. 3 weeks later, I overheard her complaining to another neighbor about strange noises keeping her up at night. She'd already called an electrician and a plumber, but they couldn't find anything wrong. She even had someone check her heating system, convinced it was making weird sounds. 2 months passed, and she started looking increasingly frazzled. The spikes and barbed wire mysteriously disappeared one day. I heard through another neighbor that she was considering moving because the building was haunted. Apparently, she couldn't sleep properly anymore due to the strange noises that nobody else could hear. I still have the receipt for those annoyatrons. Best £40 I've ever spent. The garden is peaceful again, my dog is safe, and if she ever decides to escalate things further, I still have a few more hiding spots in mind for some additional devices. I've been babysitting since I was 14 to save up for college. My mom suggested it since we live in an upper middle class neighborhood where lots of families need sitters. Most of my clients were great, paying me fairly and treating me with respect. Then I met her. It started when one of my regular clients recommended me to their neighbor. They said this woman was looking for someone reliable for her 2 kids, aged 6 and 8. The pay seemed decent, $15 per hour, and the schedule worked well with my school commitments. The first red flag appeared on day 1. After my shift, she handed me $40 for 5 hours of work. I politely reminded her of our agreed rate of $15 per hour, which should have totaled $75. She responded condescendingly, calling me sweetie and explaining that the advertised rate was just for show, and she always adjusted it based on performance. She claimed that since I hadn't done any cooking or cleaning that day, the lower amount was justified. I was stunned but didn't want to create drama. I figured I wouldn't come back, but then she guilted me about how her kids had already grown attached to me. Like an idiot, I agreed to continue. Things only got worse. She started leaving grocery lists with money that was always $20 to $30, short of what the items actually cost. When I brought this up, she told me to just cover the difference myself, claiming that since I ate snacks while I was there, it was only fair. I never touched their food, but she wouldn't listen. Then came the extra tasks. Vacuuming turned into deep cleaning. Helping with homework turned into reorganizing their study room. Each time she'd have some excuse about why these tasks were part of childcare. The breaking point came last week. I arrived to find her waiting with a bucket and sponge. She tried to sell it as a fun activity, claiming the kids would love to help me wash their cars. When I objected and reminded her that this wasn't part of our childcare agreement, she got defensive and insisted I was being difficult. She claimed it would be a learning experience for the kids. I looked over at the kids who were clearly uninterested playing their video games. I told her I was quitting and she needed to find someone else. Her face turned red as she exploded, saying I couldn't quit because she'd already scheduled her whole month. She even claimed I owed her 2 weeks' notice. When I pointed out this wasn't a corporate job and that she'd been consistently underpaying me, she became even more enraged. She started yelling about how generous she'd been and accused me of neglecting her children by being on my phone. She actually demanded $500 for emotional damages. I laughed and walked out. The next morning as I arrived at school, there she was, standing at the entrance with a huge sign reading, "Justice for Working Mothers. Bad babysitters must pay." She had somehow found my social media and learned where I went to school. She was making a scene, shouting accusations about how I had abandoned her children and supposedly stolen from her household by using their electricity for my phone charger. A small crowd of students had gathered, recording everything. School security approached her, but she refused to leave. She continued ranting about how I was teaching her children that commitments meant nothing, and kept demanding I pay her $500 or she'd take the story to the media. The police showed up within minutes. Turns out my principal had immediately called them when she started harassing students who tried to enter the school. She actually tried to grab my arm as I walked past, all while screaming about her rights as an employer. That's when it got really good. The police officer asked for proof of employment, tax forms, or any contract. Obviously, she had none. Then they found out she had been doing this to other babysitters too. Some of my former clients' parents were there for school drop-off and came forward with their own stories about her harassing teenage babysitters. She was arrested for harassment, disturbing the peace, and attempted assault for grabbing me. Her husband showed up during all this, and let's just say he wasn't happy. He started apologizing to everyone and revealed she had been spending their money on expensive shopping sprees while claiming it was going to household expenses like babysitting and groceries. She is now facing charges. Her husband filed for divorce and she's been banned from hiring from the local babysitting service. My mom says she saw moving trucks at their house last weekend. Good riddance. I've been living in this neighborhood for the past 15 years. As a retired police officer, I value peace and privacy above all else. That's exactly what I got until 3 months ago when the self-proclaimed healing guru moved in next door. When I was tending to my garden, this guy walks up to my fence wearing flowing white robes and more crystals than a chandelier store. He started telling me that my aura was deeply disturbed and that the negative energy surrounding my property was concerning. When I responded in confusion, he explained that he was a certified spiritual healer and energy worker, claiming he could sense the disrupted chi flowing through the entire neighborhood. I tried to be polite, even though every fiber of my being was telling me this guy was trouble. I politely thanked him for his concern but told him I was fine. He insisted I didn't understand, declaring that as an enlightened being, it was his duty to help cleanse this space. That should have been my first warning, but I just nodded and went back inside. A few nights later, I woke up to the smell of something burning. At first, I thought there was a fire, but when I went to investigate, I caught our enlightened neighbor climbing out of my living room window with a smoking bundle of sage in his hand. I demanded to know what the hell he thought he was doing. He calmly explained that he was cleansing my space of negative entities, claiming the spirits had guided him there. When I pointed out that the spirits had apparently guided him to break and enter, he had the audacity to tell me I should be thanking him, adding that he normally charged $500 for a full home cleansing. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, he had retreated to his house. They took a report, but since nothing was stolen and there was no damage, they said it would be hard to pursue charges. The next day, my next-door neighbor on the other side came knocking. She was frantic as she told me about how the crazy guru had broken into her teenage daughter's room the previous night. Her daughter had woken up to find him waving crystals over her bed and chanting. It turned out I wasn't the only one. He had cleansed 5 houses that week alone. We held an emergency neighborhood meeting at my house. During our meeting, we could hear him shouting through my window about how our gathering was disrupting the neighborhood's energy field and creating a vortex of negativity. That's when I had enough. As we sat there listening to his rants, an idea formed in my mind. I suggested to everyone that if he was so concerned about energy and cleansing, maybe we should help him purify his own space. My neighbors caught on quickly. We gathered every pungent, smoke-producing but legal item we could find. Sage, obviously, but also incense, essential oils, citronella candles, and even some specific stinky cheese. One neighbor who worked at a fish market contributed some overripe fish heads for the energy. For the next week, every time he left his house, we would cleanse his yard. We wafted sage smoke through his windows, sprinkled essential oils around his doorway, and left crystals everywhere, the cheap plastic kind you get at dollar stores. When he confronted us, we just smiled. I told him we were just returning the favor and that his space needed cleansing. We could feel it in our souls. He threatened to call the police, claiming harassment. I reminded him about his own nighttime break-ins, mentioning that I still had the police report and that my neighbors would love to file their reports too. We started wearing white robes and fake crystals while doing our cleansing rituals. Every time he tried to confront us, we'd just start chanting nonsense words and claiming we were following the spirit's guidance. After 2 weeks of constant energy cleansing, his house smelled like a bizarre combination of fish market, incense shop, and cheese factory. He finally got the message when he tried to sell the house, and potential buyers kept running away, gagging from the smell. One morning he approached me and finally admitted defeat, saying he would stop the cleansings. When I asked if he was sure, telling him the spirits were saying his house still had lingering negative energy, he angrily told me the spirits could go to hell. He moved out the following week. He's now realigning energies in another state. Before he left, I made sure to give him a parting gift, a plastic crystal and sage bundle from the dollar store, for protection on his journey. We still do monthly cleansing rituals in the neighborhood, but now it's more of a community barbecue where we joke about our former neighbor while burning sage in tiny amounts.